Hi everyone, my name is Katie Robertson and I'm the founder and director for the Anchor Gathering, and I'm so excited to get to welcome you to our very first Anchor at Home for the new season. We have got a great season planned ahead of us. We will be broadcasting the beginning of each month, starting now in the month of October, all the way through the month of June. We will be premiering on our YouTube channel, the Anchor Gathering, at 7 p.m. Pacific, and you can watch it anytime after the premiere. We want to make sure you know that. We also will be having some bigger in-person live stream events coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. We are just so thankful that you are joining us tonight. If you're in a watch party or you're on your own, we are so glad you're here. We've got a wonderful program in store. Before we get started, I have a few things that I'd like to share since it is our kickoff Anchor at Home. I'd like to share our mission. The mission of the Anchor is to gather women of all ages and backgrounds to be encouraged and anchored in faith and friendship. And our vision is to see women discover that for Jesus Christ as the anchor for their lives, that they would know him in a personal relationship. And I like to share our founding verse. It is found right here in our Bible in Hebrews 6:19, and it really sums it up so perfectly. It says this: we have this hope, Jesus, as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. And that is the great news. The word secure means for certain. And we know that when we are anchored to Jesus, we will be strong for today, and we have the promise for eternity in heaven. And that is the good news we want to spread, and we need your help. And there's a few ways you can do this. First of all, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Secondly, you could follow us, like us, share us on our social media platforms. That would be great. And thirdly, if you would consider becoming a watch party host, that is where the action is, and we really would love to have more come on board. That just entails inviting women into your homes. It could be your neighbor, a coworker, friend, family member. Bring them on in and watch this Anchor at Home program together to be encouraged. Go to our website, theanchorgathering.com, to find out more. Sign your name in there, and we'd love to connect with you. And lastly, you could share this link, this YouTube link, so easy to share hope, the hope of Jesus, with anyone who is on your heart or mind. You can easily send that over. So with that, we are ready to begin. I am so excited for our lineup tonight. We always like to start with music, and tonight it is an honor to introduce to you our guest singer. Her name is Maddy Sorum, and Maddy is 16 years old. She's just starting her junior year in high school. She sings on her church worship team. She recently, this is a cool fact, she recently has written, recorded, and released her first song. She has sung with top contemporary Christian musicians, one being one of our Anchor's favorite, Brandon Heath. She just recently, this summer, sang a song with Brandon at a backyard concert. So we are thrilled to have her. Let's hear now from Maddy Sorum.
Hey Anchor, my name's Maddy Sorum, and I'm so excited to be here today. I'm going to be singing a song I wrote called Favorite Sound Boundless. Here it is.
Sin stripped away, pure as white. When my walls were up, oh, you tore them down. So we lift our voices, your favorite sound. How priceless is your unfailing love. I could run, I could mess up, but to you I'm enough. Boundless is your beautiful heart. Oh Lord, take me back to the start. Oh, 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 oh. Nails in your hands.
Thank you, Maddy, for sharing your gift of music with us. What a beautiful song. Those lyrics are such a promise for us to hold on to. Well, at this time, it's the anchor moment, and that is a time where we get to hear from a guest a little bit about their life, their faith journey, and about an anchor moment. And an anchor moment is a time where you've seen Jesus to be real. Your faith has been grounded. You've really seen the Lord at work in your life. So we are really excited. Tonight is a very special interview anchor moment in the home of our guest. Her name is Leslie Mayne, and she lives in Gig Harbor, Washington. And we are going to take you there now for this special interview. Well, hi everyone. We are here on location in Gig Harbor, Washington at our Anchor Moment guest home, Leslie Mayne. It's a beautiful fall day and we are just enjoying being on this porch. Leslie is here with us. I like to start with some questions. So Leslie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm glad you're on the porch with me today because it is a beautiful fall afternoon. I am a mother of 4. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. My oldest son lives in heaven, and the other 3 live relatively close. I have a son that lives in Virginia, so that's not too close, but my daughters live close by, and that's such a blessing. And I have 3 grandchildren, with hopefully more on the way. Yeah, I feel very blessed to be able to see those grandchildren on a regular basis. They live literally right up the street.
Oh, that is the dream come true.
It is.
Well, tell us a little bit about what do you do? What are you up to these days?
So I run a nonprofit called the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation, which is the new acronym for PTSD. And it all derived from the tragedy in my life of losing a child. Was my son Kyle at 27. He overdosed in a Baltimore hotel room. He'd been treated at the Perry Point VA hospital for post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury because he served as a private first class in the United States Army. And he served in Iraq. He joined after his cousin was killed at the Pentagon on 9/11. Shelley Marshall was one of the souls that perished that day, and Kyle had been playing football in college. He and I visited October 2001, the Farr family, and sitting in a room with a 9/11 family, you never forget it and you're forever changed. It was on that day, no doubt in my mind, that Kyle decided to leave college and sign up to serve his country. So he served in Iraq and came home, and he struggled. Obviously, I mentioned traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, but there were nightmares, and there was anxiety, there was depression, there was addiction. But I have to tell you that when I learned of Kyle's death, it was unexpected. I mean, I knew he was in trouble, but I never expected to get that news, really, truly. And I'll never forget being summoned home. I was working that day. It was a Saturday. It was March 7th, 2009. And I was summoned to come home under false pretenses. The folks at my home knew what had happened, but at my work, they sent me home just some kind of an excuse that they didn't want me to work on a Saturday or something, and I'd been working too hard or something like that. So I went home to my home not having any clue. And when I walked in the door and someone handed me the phone and said, "Leslie, you need to take this phone call." And then it was the father of my 4 children who lives in Virginia. We are divorced. He just said, "Leslie, we've lost our son, we've lost our boy, and I need you to be strong." And I remember in that moment, you know, when you give birth, that groan that you often have when you're that final push, and it's a groan it's just surreal. It comes out of nowhere. I felt that groan in the reverse sense, and I went to my knees. And honestly, I never got mad at God. I just asked him to help me walk through this unspeakable pain. It should kill you, but it doesn't. But thank God I had Jesus, because I don't know how you navigate that without him. I really don't. So I would just say that my Jesus moment was when he was born, and then by the grace of God, I just continued to lean into him for all these years. And I'll tell you what, when I look back at these last years as Kyle has passed, he's helped me get strong for my other children. I have other living children that needed me. And I wasn't doing so well in the beginning, but I'm so grateful that they got to see me grow in my faith, grow with God, and trust him, and trust the process of it. I also know that there is a way to, to be healthy in your grief. I mean, you can definitely do things that aren't healthy for you. You know, the Ambien and the wine was going to kill me eventually. And, fortunately it didn't. But had I kept going that way, because I sort of didn't mind if I went that way for a while, to be very honest with you. But at the end of my time of the darkness, and as I started seeing a little bit of light, I knew I wanted to help other families and their Kyles. And I wanted to find a way to honor Kyle's life and his service, but also find a way to help soldiers work through that, navigate the trauma. There had to be a better way than throwing psychotropic drugs at the problem. And by the grace of God, I found the strength to see if the Gig Harbor community even cared about the soldiers and what their struggles were. And the epidemic that was going on out at the base was so incredible. There was every day you would hear another tragic story of soldiers either taking their lives or doing something reckless that would put themselves in harm's way. So I gathered 30 friends and family, and we met at the Wesley Inn on a regular basis, and I'd started running, like you had mentioned before we started taping today, that you had started running for your own grief and tragedy, and I did the same. And so that's sort of just, I don't know, it just seemed like that was the thing that we should do, is let's have a race for a soldier, and let's just see how many people care. I'm just a mom. I know I lost my son. My world stopped. But I needed to know if the rest of the world cared about the other Kyles. And I'll be darned if 1,500 people didn't show up that first year. So that was the genesis of the Race for a Soldier.
I have to say a word about that Race for the Soldier. I just actually signed up for that race, and this last, September, it was just a month ago, and ran the half marathon, and it was the most inspirational race that I've ever been in, and just was so inspiring. Every bit to the beginning, to what was shared, and see the picture of your son and other soldiers that have dealt with trauma, and along the race there was really inspirational. And I know, as I shared, running has, in my grief, which I think a lot of people know my story, and that we share a common ground of losing a child, but that running and pounding the ground has been so helpful in dealing with grief. And that's my next question. I was going to ask you a particular anchor moment you've had when you've seen the Lord really be real.
I got asked to speak at the base about suicide and soldiers and trauma and post-traumatic stress, and I didn't have a clue as to what I was going to say. But I knew that my son had been treated with a lot of psychotropic drugs, a lot for nightmares and things like that. I'm asked to speak, don't know what I'm going to say. I'm in a room with a lot of 2-star generals, 3-star generals, and they're all looking at me like I've got some kind of words of wisdom because I've lost a son. That didn't make me an expert, but they were looking for something as a mother. I didn't know what I was going to say. I look over, and there's a whiteboard next to me, and it's got these bold letters, PTSD. And scribbled in there was permission to start dreaming. Well, I didn't do that. I don't even know how that happened. That just came out of, well, we know where that came from. Wow. And as soon as I saw that, it was like, that's what this is about. I want to give our soldiers and our men and women that serve this country permission to start dreaming. Not the nightmares, not the trauma, not the sights and scenes that they see that they can't unsee. It is so compounded, and in the world we live in today, where the underbelly of society, it just seems to be getting darker and darker. and good men and women are out there so that you and I can sleep at night, it's profound, and it hurts my heart. So that moment to me was the change, the trajectory change. Like, this isn't just a race for a soldier. This is a movement. And so then that's what propelled me then to just, start trying to find people that were like-minded. All of these years later, we're creating an epidemic of hope as opposed to what was happening 10 years ago.
Well, I'm always going to remember this whiteboard that you saw with the PTSD.
Can you believe it?
Permission to start dreaming. And that just is hope and restoration right in the word dreaming. That you've had this moment that you've shared with us. It just brings all of us, brings me hope, it brings us all hope. To know that God really is behind us. He sees us. He sees what we're really going through, and that trauma and those hard moments that He's given you that vision, to start what you have here in our Pacific Northwest is really incredible and bringing hope to so many. And I got to witness firsthand in that race. There was a joy there, that there was a inspiration and more of an intention behind it that really was incredible. And I hope more people, that they'll come join me. I'm going to do it again next year, that race for the Soldier.
Well, you're saying some very nice things about that race. Most people aren't always that flattering because it is a very hard race. So you must be in incredible shape.
You did have a couple hills in there that were a little brutal. But then, see, that was my analogy of life. We're all on a race course. And with the Lord as our anchor and the strength that He brings us each day, we can make it up those hills, especially with each other. So I want to thank you again so much.
Thank you, Katie. It's a real pleasure.
We now have the opportunity to hear from our main speaker, and it's a privilege for me to get to introduce to you tonight our speaker. Her name is Jacinta Tegman. Jacinta is the CEO of CRISTA Ministries, located in Seattle, Washington. It is one of the largest nonprofits in the Pacific Northwest. Prior to that, she was the president for World Concern, and she has 35 years of organizational leadership, from international missions to church ministry. She has a passion to share the gospel of Jesus with the world. She and her husband have 3 grown children and 8 grandchildren. We have to make note, 7 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. So let's hear now from Jacinta.
Hi there, I'm Jacinta Tegman, and it's just a joy to be able to greet you today and share a little bit of my story with you. I love that you are meeting in small groups, and that is super meaningful to me because many years ago, my mom was invited to a neighborhood Bible study. I'd grown up in kind of a religious home. I wouldn't say I really had a relationship with God. And a neighbor lady who loved Jesus invited my mom to go to this Bible study, and it changed my mom's life, and it changed our entire family. And I'm sitting here today because of that meeting. And so it's super exciting for me to be able to share with you this part of my life that's super precious to me, but also to invite you. And I think that's what this is about. It's an invitation, isn't it? I'm thinking about a story in the Bible, in the first book of Genesis, chapter 16, if later you want to look it up. But it's the story of this woman. So Abraham and Sarah, before those were their names, they were called Abram and Sarai. And God had promised Abram that he was going to form a great nation from him, and that he and his wife would be the mother and father of this beautiful part of God's story. But as time went on and no baby came, they started getting desperate. And you know how we as women, we try to fix things? So that's what Sarai did. She's like, it's not happening, Abraham, we're getting older. Here's my servant, Hagar. You go ahead and have a baby with her, and that's how we're going to form this nation. And isn't that just like us? Sometimes God gives us a promise, something that He has for us, and we are impatient, and when we don't see it happen, we take matters into our own hands. And so Hagar went with Abram, and she got pregnant. Well, now Sarai had totally rethought this plan of hers. And Sarai cast Hagar out and said, I don't want her here. I don't want her to be a part of this promise that God had for us, Abram. So off Hagar goes, alone in the wilderness. She's been used. She's been abused. She's been left on her own. And there she is without any hope, without any friends, without any means, without any protection. And in that very moment, she hears someone calling to her, Hagar, Hagar. She looks around and she sees that God has a plan for her life. He meets with her there. He explains to her, you're not abandoned, you're not alone. Go back to your mistress and your master, and I will take care of you. And Hagar, so overwhelmed by this experience with God, says these beautiful words found in Genesis chapter 16, I have seen the one who has seen me. You know, so many times in our lives, I think we feel unseen, unheard, underappreciated. And I remember sometimes I felt like, well, I have been noticed. Years ago, I was part of a relief and development organization. I was one of just a handful of women who were in a role running a large organization like that. And at this particular meeting I was invited to, I was the only woman. And as I looked around in the sea of suits, gray, charcoal, black, I thought to myself, as the only woman in that room, I am so rethinking this yellow sweater I'm wearing right now. So yes, there have been times when I have been seen, but there have also been in my life, and I'm sure in your life, many times when you have felt unseen, uncared for, maybe abused, cast aside. And I want to tell you today that God sees you and that you can have a relationship, a deeper relationship with Him. We read in another part of the Bible, it's in 1 Peter 5:7, that we can cast all our cares upon Him because He cares for us. Isn't that wonderful news to know that we're just not seen, but we're cared for, and that the God of the universe cares for you. And then beyond that, not only does He see us and care for what we're going through, that you can go to Him in prayer, that you can tell Him your problems, your dreams, your hopes, those things you're ashamed of, those pain points in your life. But He has also told us that we can give that burden over to Him. In Matthew chapter 28, in chapter 11, verse 28, there's this beautiful part of the Bible that tells us in Jesus' very own words that we can come to Him if we're burdened, if we're heavy laden, and we can give that over to Him. So today, in your little group, wherever you're watching this, I just want to say there is a God that hears you, sees you, knows you. There is a God that cares for what you're going through. There is a God that says, whatever your burden is, whatever that you're carrying today, you don't have to do it alone. That you can give that over to Him, that He invites you into that deeper relationship, and that He has a beautiful plan for your lives. You know, I think back to that story of my mom. You know, we were probably not an exceptional family. We were going about business as usual, but somebody in our little neighborhood took the time to extend an invitation. And that invitation was powerful. It showed care and interest and all those wonderful things. But there was another part of that is equally as important. And that is that my mom had to accept that invitation. Yes, the invitation was extended, but I don't think I would be here today if my mom hadn't done her part too. And so when you're thinking about inviting people and praying for people to come to your group and for it to grow, of course you're doing your part. But on the other side of that invitation, if it is not accepted, well, here we are. And so I also want to just use that analogy to say today, God has an invitation for you. An invitation for you to recognize that you are seen by the God of the universe. An invitation that He is calling out to you, because in the deepest parts of our loving Heavenly Father, He cares for you. And He longs to, that's why it says in Jesus' own words, come to me. He extends that invitation to you. Sometimes that invitation is heard for the very first time, and maybe that's you. You may know about God like our family did. We just didn't know this God who saw us. And so maybe today is that day for the very first time you realize that God cares for you and has that call to you. Or perhaps you have walked with the Lord for many, many years. You've grown and there's things you know. But you know the cool thing about serving our God is that He calls us deeper. So that invitation is deeper still, for you to walk into a deeper, more intimate, more powerful relationship with the God of the universe. As you break into your small group now, and as you consider these words, there's a few share questions that we're leaving with you around times that maybe you have felt unseen, times that you have felt like you didn't matter to anyone. What did that feel like, and how did you respond? Also, how do you know when somebody cares for you? I love the example that Jesus gave us, because not only does He say in His word that He cares, but He demonstrated His love for us, that while we were in the most sinful state, He died for us to forgive us our sins so that we could spend eternity with Him. And He showed His care for us. So the question for you is, how do you know when somebody cares for you? And then finally, what keeps you from going into a deeper relationship? Perhaps it's a deeper relationship with a family member or a friend. But I want you to also consider what keeps you from going into a deeper relationship with God, whether it's that first response to the invitation He gives you, or to go deeper still. I know that God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. I'm so thankful for this opportunity that I've had to just share a little bit of my story. But you know what? You have a story too. It's powerful, and God is at work in your lives. So may God bless you. I know this is the first meeting of the year. May God bless you, not only for this meeting, but for the fall season and all that is ahead, that you would know that you are loved, that you are cared for, and that God invites you into a deeper relationship. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta, for sharing that inspirational message. I just love hearing about how your faith began, really from your mom attending a neighborhood Bible study. And that reminds me of what we're doing here at the Anchor with our watch parties. And I love the way you shared those truths for us to hold on to and stay anchored on, that the Lord sees us, He cares for us, and He wants to know us in a personal relationship. So thank you again. Well, Jacinta has provided some questions for us for our discussion time. You will find those on your screen. They are going to help you to go deeper in your watch party group, or you can ponder those if you're watching on your own. Our hope and prayer is that you would be encouraged and go deeper with the message. Well, now we have come to the end of our first Anchored Home of the new season, and I want to leave us all with a blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and may He fill you with amazing joy and peace. And until next time, like I always like to say, stay anchored, and we'll see you soon.